It's a cold evening in the year 1423. A thin mist creeps through the muddy streets of a small English town. Shutters close, dogs bark in the distance, and from a timber-framed building near the marketplace comes the warm glow of firelight and laughter. Inside, the smell of smoke, ale, and roasting meat fills the air. A lute plays softly in the corner. Men and women talk over wooden tables, their mugs slamming down in bursts of cheer. This is not a castle, nor a church. This is a tavern. And in the medieval world, it was the beating heart of social life. Tonight, we're stepping inside that world, into the noise, the warmth, and the secrets of the medieval tavern, where travelers met strangers, deals were struck, songs were sung, and sometimes sins were forgiven with enough ale. The tavern was far more than a place to drink. It was the crossroads of the Middle Ages, where peasants, pilgrims, merchants, and even nobles crossed paths. And for ordinary people, it was one of the few escapes from the harsh realities of medieval life. The first taverns appeared in Europe as early as the 9th and 10th centuries. At first, they were simple alehouses, often just the front rooms of private homes where women brewed and sold their own beer. These women were known as alewives, and their doorposts were marked with a branch or a bush, a sign that ale was sold inside. Over time, these humble alehouses evolved into taverns and inns, larger places offering food, lodging, and community. By the 14th century, taverns had become essential to every village and town. Some were small and smoky, others grand and busy, with private rooms for merchants and travelers. In some cities, you could find a tavern on nearly every street. Chaucer's famous Canterbury Tales begins in one, the Tabard Inn, where pilgrims gather before their journey. So what did a medieval tavern actually look like? Imagine a low, timber-framed building, its beams darkened by years of smoke. The floor is packed earth or rough planks, covered in straw to soak up spills. The main hall is lit by tallow candles and the fire in the hearth. There's no glass in the windows, just oiled parchment or open shutters letting in the cold night air. At the center, long wooden tables are crowded with people. Some sit on benches, others stand, shouting to be heard over the noise. The walls are decorated with tools, hunting trophies, and the occasional religious image, a reminder that even amid the ale and laughter, God is watching. Behind the counter stands the tavern keeper, or host, pouring ale from large wooden casks. His wife or daughter might be serving food, bread, cheese, salt pork, onions, and, if you're lucky, a hot stew bubbling over the fire. The ale itself was the lifeblood of the tavern. It was brewed from barley, water, and yeast. But no hops yet. Hopped beer didn't become common in England until the late 15th century. Ale was thick, cloudy, and low in alcohol, more a liquid bread than a modern drink. People drank it daily because water was often unsafe. A good alewife could make a fine living from her brewing skills, though laws and taxes often made it difficult. In larger towns, wine was served too, imported from France or Italy. But only the wealthy could afford it. For everyone else, ale and mead were the drinks of choice. The tavern wasn't just a place to drink, though. It was the medieval newsroom, market, and meeting hall all in one. Here, travelers brought stories from distant lands. Merchants discussed prices and trade routes. Farmers arranged marriages and land deals. And sometimes the tavern became a place of politics, where local revolts were whispered into being. In times of peace, it was a place of laughter and song. In times of war, it could turn dangerous, filled with soldiers, mercenaries, and thieves. Taverns had reputations, good or bad. Some were respectable places, run by honest hosts who kept order and welcomed travelers. Others were rough, full of gambling, prostitution, and crime. In medieval England, authorities often tried to regulate taverns, limiting the hours, taxing the ale, and punishing unlawful games like dice or cards. But no law could truly control the life inside. It wasn't just warmth, it was the center of the room's life. People gathered around it to share stories, cook food, and warm their hands after a long day in the fields. And with the fire came the music. Minstrels, troubadours, and wandering musicians often earned their keep by performing in taverns. Their songs told stories of love, war, and faith, of knights and ladies, saints and sinners. Some sang in Latin, others in the local tongue, and everyone joined the chorus once the ale took hold. Even the church, which often condemned drunkenness, recognized the power of the tavern. Preachers warned that the devil sits in the corner of every alehouse, but the people came anyway. Because for one night inside those smoky walls, the harsh world outside could be forgotten. The tavern also had a practical side. Travel in the Middle Ages was slow and dangerous, and travelers needed safe places to rest. Inns and taverns often provided beds, or at least straw pallets, for a few coins. Rooms were shared with strangers, and personal space didn't exist. You might wake up beside a merchant, a monk, and a thief, all snoring under the same blanket. Food was simple but hearty. Thick stews of meat and vegetables, bread, and ale. On feast days, roasted fowl or fish might appear on the table. There were no menus, no table service. You ate what was available and you ate with your hands. Cleanliness was another matter. Taverns were lively, but not always pleasant to the nose. The floors were rarely cleaned, and the air was thick with smoke and sweat. But compared to the freezing dark outside, it was heaven. The clientele of medieval taverns was as varied as the world outside. Peasants came to celebrate after harvest. Artisans and craftsmen gathered after work. Travelers and pilgrims stopped to rest their feet and share their tales. Even the clergy, though officially forbidden from such places, were known to slip inside for a drink or two. Women were not rare in taverns either. Some ran them, some worked in them, and others came as guests. Though the image of a rowdy all-male tavern is common, many were family businesses, places of both commerce and community. As night deepened, the atmosphere changed. The fire burned low, the songs grew louder, and the line between joy and chaos blurred. Fights could break out over spilled ale or insulted pride. Knives were drawn, tables overturned. The local constable might be called, or might already be in the tavern himself. But most nights ended with laughter and song. Voices rose together in hymns to drink, to friendship, and to life itself. The tavern, for all its flaws, was the one place where all classes met on something like equal ground. The farmer, the blacksmith, the friar, the traveler, all shared the same fire, the same ale, the same moment of warmth against the cold world outside. By the light of morning, the tavern looked very different. The floor was sticky with spilled drink, the air heavy with ashes. A few figures still slept in corners, their snores mingling with the sound of the host's broom. Bread was baked, ale cast refilled, and by midday the doors would open again. Because in the Middle Ages the tavern never truly slept. Taverns also played an important role in literature and legend. They were where stories began and where truth was bent by ale and imagination. From Chaucer's Pilgrims to Robin Hood's Merry Men, the tavern was a stage for the drama of everyday life. It was where gossip turned into myth and myth into history. Even the word tavern carried meaning beyond its walls. It was a symbol of comfort, of sin, of freedom, depending on who you asked. To the peasant, it was warmth. To the priest, temptation. To the traveler, a beacon in the night. And though centuries have passed, the idea of the tavern still survives. In every pub, every inn, every place where strangers meet over a drink and a story. The smell of ale, the sound of laughter, the glow of the hearth, these things haven't changed. In a world where survival was hard and life was short, the medieval tavern offered something priceless. A place to belong, even for an evening. A place where you could forget hunger, cold, and fear. Where you could raise a mug and feel for a brief moment that you were truly alive. So the next time you walk past a pub with its lights spilling into the night, imagine the sound of a lute, the smoke of a peat fire, the clink of wooden mugs, and the laughter of strangers who, 6 centuries ago, wanted the same thing we do today: warmth, company, and a story worth remembering. That was the spirit of the medieval tavern. Loud, smoky, imperfect, but utterly human.